Hello, welcome to another AI Journal webinar that we are doing with Vanti Analytics today. Very excited to have everyone joining us today, if you're watching live or on the recording. We've got a great topic today, and you'll see it as we go on, what we'll be talking about, what we'll be discussing, and looking at how to address the broken promise of AI manufacturing. Got two great panelists who are going to be talking through it. My good friend Kieran Gilmurray, who I've done a lot of different discussions with, webinars, interviews with, and Kate Arndt, who's a specialist in this area and really understanding on how to add value in this sector with powerful technologies such as AI. So we're going to be looking at a lot of different themes today, or a number of different themes today. And without going into it in too much detail, I think by joining either live or on the recording, you're going to get a lot of value that you can take back to your business, back to your team, to understand what can be done, how you can leverage technologies such as AI, and really question how you can bring more value. But I'll let the experts that we brought for you today to explain that in more detail for a very engaged, relaxed discussion. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And if you have any questions during the session, during today, during now, and if you have it on the recording as well, please put them in the chat, and a member from the Vanti Analytics team, Kieran or myself, will make sure we get them answered for you. So really looking forward to it. Wherever you are, enjoy the session, listen carefully, take some notes, and make sure that you take the impact away. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Kieran and Kate, who will be able to give a bit of a background to themselves, a bit of background on what they're doing, and of course, discuss this engaging topic that we're bringing you today through the AI Journal and Vanti Analytics. Kieran, Kate, great to have you. Over to the pair of you.
Thank you, sir. So let me do something in the correct order. What about expert first, Kate? Do you want to introduce yourself? I'll then introduce myself. And then the joy for me today is that I have an expert in front of me today. So now I'm going to get asking all the questions that the audience will want to ask.
Well, Kieran, I'm very flattered, but I feel the same about you. I'm very excited for the opportunity to chat with you today. I think we're going to have a lot of great things to talk about. By ways of introduction, I am Kate, like you said, Kate Arndt, and I work at Vanti. It's a company that makes AI for manufacturers, and we're looking to talk through a lot of the experiences we've had. And so with that said, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, fantastic. Look, for those folks who don't know me, my name is Kieran. I've been in the IT and business sector for about the last 27 years, usually sitting between the two, translating from one or the other. And I've had the privilege of watching so many different IT sectors or so many different technologies come and go. But one of the most exciting ones that I have seen for years is the AI space. And that has come about for lots of reasons, Kate, including massive compute power and all sorts of expertise that's now appearing in the industry, but it's also down to companies like yourself appearing in the industry, specialists who are focusing on particular parts of the economy, in this instance, manufacturing, to create really smart operations. So rather than listen to stories about me, why don't we get in, and I'm going to make the most use of this hour possible. There is lots and lots of promise, Kate. I hear figures in the billions and the trillions about how smart manufacturing can create enormous value. At very high level, just for a moment before we drill in, what is the promise that has been made to companies from smart AI manufacturing or platform companies like yourself?
Right, so the numbers can sometimes make it seem like AI is some sort of magic trick or a buzzword. And it's often, met with a little bit of skepticism, but I think that's good. It's always good to be a little bit skeptical. But ultimately, that's true. The value that is there for manufacturing specifically when it comes to leveraging AI and using their data is in the trillions. Like according to McKinsey, there's about 37 trillion at stake. So there's a lot of opportunity. And with that opportunity, there's also a lot of appetite for, obviously, everybody wants to be more efficient and optimize their production. They see the value, when it even comes to safety with AI and manufacturing, with operational costs in general, with waste reduction, energy usage. And ultimately, the bottom line is it's going to help empower the manufacturers that take advantage of this amazing technology to really transform their production, and also that'll benefit not only those companies, but the consumers that are impacted with their end products as well.
Okay, so we hear lots of promises there. So I hear cost reduction, waste reduction, revenue, a whole host of things. And if I'm signing up to these as someone buying this software, I want them all. I just don't want some of them. So explain to me, how can companies become these smart manufacturing organizations to leverage all of those benefits?
Exactly. So a big part of this is I don't think there's a CEO out there or it's rare to meet maybe a CEO that doesn't understand the value of their data and being data driven. But to actually capture what it means to be data driven is another story. That's usually where there's some extra work involved. And ultimately, being smart and using AI and using your data allows for those quicker decisions to be made. It helps you reduce your downtime. It helps you take advantage of every last piece of material that you have in order to meet your demand. And ultimately, it's like, an optimization or industrial engineer's dream to be able to take all that data and actually learn from it and have actionable insights as a result.
Well, that's the joy of a manufacturing entity, isn't it? That there's data everywhere. And now there's IoT devices, which are introducing even more data. So now we know the data's there. We talked earlier on about the promise of it. So do you have an example of someone, Kate, who really has implemented AI within manufacturing to really get those benefits? Because I think the audience who are listening in, they've heard a lot about theory, but they're sort of going, okay, prove it. So do you have a prove it example, or am I putting you on the spot there?
No, that's perfect. So where I've seen at least the most value come from AI and the data that's produced in manufacturing is when a manufacturing or a facility or a business at like a higher level is really shifting their mindset around what they're looking to achieve. And they're taking away the idea that AI is just going to be a project or an initiative. For example, one of my the manufacturers that I've worked with, one gentleman in particular mentioned that he wanted AI to be part of the business and not an initiative. So I love that quote. One day I'm going to get him to sign off on that. It might be after this call or this webinar. But bottom line is having that mindset allows you to go from having just that traditional manufacturing facility that we kind of imagine from the past 100 years to actually generating that data in a way that's useful, understanding what data is useful, getting those insights in real time, and then being able to make those decisions. It's great for just one use case, but in this particular example, the ones that are really bought in understand that the most value comes from scale. So an example in this case is that we started out in one facility. We prioritized, a couple business cases, basically we were trying to figure out the business impact. That was our leading star of like how we would go about bringing value through AI in their data. And then we came up with like a list of potential use cases, and we organized them by feasibility and impact, narrowed it down to the ones that would get us results quickest, because that's how you create buy-in. And ultimately landed on one use case for essentially like the cycle time reduction. It led to test time reduction. We were able to reduce the test time of one, whole process by about 40%. And the coolest thing is, that's a huge value just on that one production line. But if you think about it, and when they have 8 of the exact same lines, 8x that is tremendous. And there's very little investment that goes in to scaling it. But a lot of people fall short of that scale component. They don't actually get to optimize as much as they could or get the full value because they're stopping at just like one use case or one line. And it's really, once you get to that scale component is when you're going to get that true potential and that full value, which is what they did in that facility. And then the next level of that is they have multiple facilities like that they're going to be able to take these use cases and apply them even at a global scale.
Oh, wow. Because it's interesting, because I'm going to pluck a couple of things out there for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think you and I referred to before as a lighthouse,
Mm-hmm.
which is it shines a light that the rest of the organization can follow. That sounds key.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is it's not a toolkit that you're applying. It's a way of thinking and a way of working. And I think organizations need to transition from I have a tool, here's a process, to how can we optimize our entire operations. What was the thing that they did to let other people know about the success of this Lighthouse project? What practical things did they do?
Right. So exactly, like that mindset that you're referring to, it starts with the leadership. It starts with a culture change. This is all paradigm shift. I think it's a new area for everybody. But yeah, the Lighthouse labeled manufacturers are the ones that have proven success of this AI at scale. And they've also already seen the benefits from it in a very large way. And it's a third party that will like dub them this title of the Lighthouse, which I really enjoy that title, by the way. And basically this particular example that I'm using, they have a whole wide range of, I guess, capabilities when it comes to their AI throughout their whole entire organization. To my knowledge, one of their facilities is a Lighthouse facility, and the lessons and their investment and their mindset in order to help spread out that whole shift. And they're using that as like a way to create a benchmark, to create that buy-in, to create these examples. They're using the best practices that they've demonstrated and rolling that out, globally. So that's where that whole mindset is so important, is that people at the top who can orchestrate that and they're aware of all these moving parts are the ones that are going to bring that value together and allow, the whole organization to benefit from.
You mentioned a moment ago that, that was best practice in that particular facility. One of the things I've seen are a challenge for organizations is understanding best practice, or actually understanding the value that you can get from AI. Have you found that in industry? Do people know what good looks like? And what other challenges have you seen as well when you're trying to roll this out or introduce people to smart manufacturing or organizations?
I'm very glad you asked this, because while the lighthouses exist, they are rare. These are the ones that are way ahead of the pack. And there's no, shame in not being there. It's a huge accomplishment what they've been able to do. But that 37 trillion that we were talking about earlier is only going to be obtained by the ones that are able to get up to scale like they are. So right now, the standard actually is about 70% are still stuck in what they called pilot purgatory. I also like that phrase. So essentially, they're not able to break out of this never-ending cycle where they're constantly testing. They're spending a lot of time investing, whether it's time and resources. The traditional way to implement AI for those that are in their early stages is mostly by hiring data scientists and other data specialists in their organization, which is a great way, obviously, to implement certain AI initiatives. And the challenge there, though, is it often, the data side of the organization is not always completely in sync with the business side. And so having these different maybe objectives and there's not a total buy-in or consistency around the business value can lead to projects that kind of get disappointing. If a data science team basically works a very long time, usually models take a long time to develop and deploy, for it to then ultimately not even actually bring the business that much value, it's pretty disappointing at the end of it. The ROI isn't very high. So that's a major challenge that these organizations are stuck in pilot purgatory and feeling that broken promise of AI is because they're not able to get out of what has been prescribed as the norm. So that's why these lighthouse examples kind of bring us out of that, and they show us different options that holistically will help us achieve our goals. With many of those, many of those strategies will be necessary, but there needs to be a bit of diversity in the approach from like the traditional path.
So if we plucked at a couple of things that you mentioned there a moment ago, so you mentioned that maybe not aligned with business value, and then you mentioned, quantities of data scientists. I don't think organizations can afford quantities of data scientists. So what would you suggest that we do, or what models or software should we buy that overcomes some of those deficiencies with ever increasing data scientists and cost and broken models and not realizing value? Question one. And then the second part is, okay, so assume you can overcome that. How do you get the analytics strategy or AI strategy very much aligned with business value and the business strategy?
So I might go out of order on your questions, but that's because we have to start with your second one. It's starting with the business value is what's going to help you get any value. One of my first lessons from a professor in college was like, as an IE, the only thing you should be concerned about is bottom line. And honestly, that's true for a business and everybody involved. So making sure that the roles in these initiatives and business shift in paradigm are aligned with your overall AI objectives, and aligning these goals to be common throughout each organization, creating more collaboration between business and data, and making sure we're all, going the same way. We're all rowing the same boat. And that's what's going to drive that value. And that value is really critical, obviously, the whole time. Your ROI, if you're spending a lot of time, it's important to get a good return on it. But it's even more critical, especially at the beginning of this paradigm shift, because you're trying to create buy-in, you're trying to generate excitement, and everybody in your organization has to be involved. So proving that value early with those initial use cases and getting those ones right based on that business value will then help generate that, not a broken promise, but a fulfilled promise of AI, and help bring back that belief in what AI can bring to the business.
Well, see if we stick, and again, this is the joy of talking to someone who does this on a daily basis. Let's look at ROI, the thing that your professor mentioned and you're talking to as well. How do the companies that you're dealing with measure ROI? Is that net person hours? Is that hard dollars? Is that time back to the business, and then they measure what folks do with this new value time created? Is it a mixture of things, or what's more or least successful for different manufacturing organizations?
It is a mix, and it is funny because it varies a lot by organization, by company. So I've heard, well, you're giving me soft savings or something, but I need to demonstrate hard savings. So even this kind of goes back to the organization part, which I won't get too lost in, but even that procurement buy-in too, to understand the manufacturing perspective and the business value in savings. Because when it comes to using data and AI in manufacturing, one of the biggest return on your investments will be the savings. It'll be material savings, it'll be waste reduction, it'll be energy savings, but that leads to so many other variables that aren't as maybe obvious to quantify, but meeting customer demand. Like if you're in the semiconductor industry and you have a leg up on your competition because you are more advanced with AI and leveraging your data, you are going to really far exceed your competition in price to your end customer, and being able to supply them on time. Happy customers mean you have more business. If you're reducing your cycle time, if you're reducing your waste, if you're more efficient, then you're going to be able to meet these needs, and really it's a huge competitive advantage that is sometimes lost in the ROI. But even when it comes to personnel, your data scientists could be focused. I think that's another part of this, is when it comes to a successful, scalable AI solution, it needs to be multi-faceted. You need to have multi approaches. Like, I love data scientists, they're the best, but they're really good at solving certain problems and complex ones, and their time should be spent on that or innovating. So free up that time. That's another big ROI part, is that if your data scientists have the time to go innovate, then and you're also solving these like low-hanging fruit, let's say AI requirements in a different way outside of the data scientist's time and resources, you're kind of doing two things at once that compound into a very, very high return on your investment as well.
Yeah, I sometimes think we should consider a balanced scorecard of benefits, because to your point there, you do get hours back, you do get waste reduction. I just wonder sometimes, as folks in our industry, are we just really bad at telling the story? It's not that the benefits aren't there. Like, I will save time, people's time who aren't doing mundane tasks, and then free them up to do the stuff they love. That makes them happier, which makes them stay longer, which improves product quality, which reduces hiring cost, and then all the risk cost associated with like monitoring and repeat work and whatever else. So I think maybe we could get better at actually explaining it, but let's see. You mentioned data scientists there just a second ago, and my worry with data scientists is they're brilliant individuals, of course, goes without saying, but, and here's the but, because they spend potentially 70% of their time actually prepping the data and getting it ready, then they're not doing what you said a moment ago, which is on the innovative stuff and the really complex problems that are deserving of their intellect and time.
Exactly.
So, two things, I suppose. One, tell me what you see goes wrong in manufacturing as a generalism around the time that folks spend. Why do models break? And what have you seen put in place that moves that 70% of time working on the preparation of the data to the 70% working on the stuff that really drives value in an organization?
Exactly. So, for example, working on a specific pilot, I suppose, with a manufacturer, they're trying to figure out where in their process the defects are happening. It's a process that takes about a week and a half. And as it currently stands, they are required, they've since been required to hire 4 people to do some root cause analysis retroactively. After that week and a half happens, they're looking to figure out, okay, well, why are these units failing at the end of the line? So 4 people, and they could be doing anything innovative, but they're doing things in retrospect and to make up for things. So it's about shifting their time and focus and energy, and the way that you do that are the most successful, I guess, those lighthouses. They understand that you can leverage technologies if you have the right tools in place. There's technologies out there like Vanti, of course, that can help supplement your overall objectives. So that really frees up the data scientists, work. So rather than going back and figuring out what's happening, in the past, it's not really value add. It will be once they solve the problem, but you can instead use some auto ML platforms that specifically are designed for manufacturers, can understand the data drift, can prevent models breaking in production, because it's designed specifically with manufacturing use cases and understanding that this data will be shifting. These are things that, if there are already use cases basically developed specifically for manufacturers, and those applications that are tried and true, that's where you can go get that low-hanging fruit, so to speak, with all that data potential and all of that ROI potential. Execute a bunch of use cases, scale it, and then let your data scientists worry about those like very unique custom fit solutions.
It's a good question, by the way. That was Patty in the background, folks. So if you do have a question, please let us know. And Patty and I will be talking later on in the week as well, believe it or not. So really great question. You mentioned a second ago, Kate, you talked about a manufacturing system and people knowing manufacturing. But I see a lot of vendors out there, when you ask them, what's your specialty? They go, well, we do manufacturing, we do call centers, and we do general maths, and we do... Do you think you need to be a specialist in manufacturing to really know the answers and to create great systems and have great data for data scientists? Or can you implement a generalist system that does everything?
So I'm looking at my phone because I was actually taking notes about this live last night. I went to an event where we were talking about pretty much this exact topic. Yeah, I guess before I was a little skeptical. I was like, data is data. It shouldn't need to have a specific manufacturing focus, but it's extremely important in a lot of the applications that manufacturers experience. The manufacturing environment is very dynamic. And if a model is trained, let's say it's computer vision, if a model is trained to be able to tell the difference between a wolf and a husky, which was the example last night, that's one computer vision use case. But in a manufacturing facility, if someone bumps the camera, that doesn't change as long as the whatever it's focusing on or trying to learn or understand as far as quality is concerned. Let's say if it's defect detection, if someone bumps the camera, that doesn't mean that it's no longer in that example a husky or a wolf. It's just the computer vision model needs to be smart enough to understand that the data can drift and that what features and what variables are important, what to be focusing on, instead of just generic, like if it's pixel related or that custom domain knowledge and having that understanding of a manufacturing facility is very critical in your AutoML solutions, should you choose to go that path. And that is something that, should you implement, will help you a lot with your results and make them a lot more reliable over time.
So I'm just very tempted to ask you which manufacturing groups have huskies in their production lines, but I'm assuming it's dog manufacturing, but we'll hold for that.
Yeah, well, it was a dog manufacturer.
Fantastic. Hopefully they got it right, otherwise they've now canned the wrong thing. You mentioned, we were looking there a moment ago, so we got, let's just reverse back a little bit. So it should be domain knowledge, it should be specific, it should be manufacturing tool, because there is a difference between manufacturing environments. But manufacturers, just out loud, they can benefit from more than the production line, can't they? Like if I put AI, then AI can be in HR, AI can be in finance to work out, whatever, what's our budgets or our cash flow going to be, to high percentage predictability. I could put it in my sales unit, to work out next best action, customer lifetime value. Are all those things considered in most providers' tool sets, or are they so focused just on production line that AI can't scale across an entire organization? So there's a mindset everywhere. Where does it fit, and what's your experience with manufacturers?
So that varies significantly. I guess to take out of that, the ideal is spreading across that value chain, understanding, the whole supply chain, understanding the impacts throughout your whole business, upstream, downstream, it doesn't matter. So that is the objective. And having a technology stack that is able to accommodate that is important. I've not personally seen, or maybe I'm not aware of, a specific AI solution that can accommodate all of those things in a very effective way throughout that supply chain. That's because this is a very complex solution. So just making sure that you're set up, I think you mentioned earlier, like that digitalization, the IT/OT components of everything, making sure you're set up to extract that data at a high level is going to help you in the mid to short term. But I'm sure long term, these technologies are going to scale and have these specialties across the value chain as well.
So there's a question come in from Khaled there a second ago. We want, you and I, because we know the benefits of AI in a manufacturer, but what can we do? Maybe we share perspectives here. What can we do beyond telling, look, you're going to get some hours back and waste reduced? How do we get everybody in a business excited about AI? What's some of the things that you have done beyond the Lighthouse? And the Lighthouse is a key example to convince the C-suite, which is probably more than manufacturing operation directors area, as Khaled's asking here, to get AI spread all over a manufacturing organization?
So yeah, that's the thing, the all over, like getting that excitement all over. It's important from every angle. So I guess there's a couple of strategies. obviously the leadership top down is very important. Identifying some people that are going to be, I guess, champions or advocates that you can kind of promote in such a way, you then, create these internal people who are literate in AI and can go spread the word, so to speak, because we're changing a lot of people's minds here. It's not an easy task, but also those original successes are very important. So that's why it's really, when you are looking at the early stages, when you are looking to implement and scale, you're really kind of on a test by everybody watching. They're expecting all these great results, so you want to deliver and not make them feel the broken promise. And the way you do that is you come up with your business use case, whatever you're trying to achieve for the business, even if it's organization specific. And then you're listing out your use cases, potential use cases, and you're prioritizing them on the feasibility and the impact. So whichever ones will be the most feasible and have the highest impact, that's what you're going to go for. And as soon as you show that ROI the first time, it's going to bring in some people who believe. And then over time, as long as you use those same strategies, that's when it's going to build up that momentum.
Yeah, I think I would add on a couple of things that I agree with every one of them. That top-down buy-in. You need wins. So yeah. I don't think set yourself up to do something really complicated that's going to take a lifetime. Otherwise, people are going to check where the money's going. I think we do need to get better. Kate, I don't know whether you agree or not, as I said earlier on, at telling the story as well, because whilst we have great data scientists, do we have great storytellers? And we almost need to present the North Star, the lighthouse, plus explain all the benefits, plus deliver the benefits. And then someone once told me it's not just good enough doing the work, you also have to communicate what it is that you actually did in a way that someone can understand. So I think all those things are key. And getting those evangelists inside of the organization as well excited is super and necessary. And I think we need to bring people along with us, tell them the story and give them maybe more information than anyone else. The key bit I have found always, and you've alluded to this several times, is align it with the business strategy, be seen to be helping deliver the business strategy, and then always have the next and the next and the next business case lined up. Because again, too often I've seen organizations have one success story and then go, what are we going to do now? Which delays the project immensely. But let's dig in a little bit more, Kate. This isn't about me. I'm just going to enjoy meeting and talking to an expert for an hour and drilling into all the questions that I want to ask. But please, folks, do ask questions as well, and we'll get them in here. What, at high level, just if you signpost very broadly, what are the successful ingredients to get AI into manufacturing and working, and AI into manufacturing, and then scaling to make it even more successful?
Okay, yes. So, based on the lighthouse examples and then some of my experiences working with manufacturers, like you mentioned, that starting with the business case is always going to be the critical part. I think I've said that 100 times, but it's important because that's what's also going to allow you to get an ROI at the end of it. But beyond that, democratizing the technology is very important. Often with the current approach or typical approach that manufacturers might have in this space is that they'll have data science teams working on very specific problems in their own world, and say they, come up with a use case, and then they develop the model. That could take a couple months to do, maybe a year from idea to deployment. And then by the time that they do it, it requires maintenance for the data drift purposes we were talking about. And if there's, personnel change or, a supplier changes their material specs and that breaks the model, there are a bunch of components in there that can put all of that work at risk. And even if it's not at risk, we'll still require a specialist to be able to accommodate any of those dynamic components that manufacturing brings. So finding a way to make it possible to sustain and develop and deploy and implement AI models when it doesn't require a data scientist is important. So that democratized technology, it sounds kind of like a buzzword, but it is an important thing as well to be able to make AI accessible. So I kind of think of certain platforms like Vanti as almost like a tool that allows many more people access to those things we just talked through. And that's what's going to allow that implementation. That's what's going to allow that scale. And then that's what's going to allow that transformation. Just using platforms that have already figured out those use cases that are very user friendly and can adapt to data drift. And it's self-adapting AI, honestly, over time. So it doesn't need a data scientist to be there all the time. And if somebody leaves one job and someone else comes in, all that work's not redundant.
So you mentioned a moment ago, so we've got pre-built cases, we've got democratization, we've got data scientists. Maybe Khaled's reiterated this point a moment ago, is this expensive? Or is it expensive when you don't get a return? Or is it just generally expensive buying a manufacturing AI system or platform and building all this capability and knowledge?
So my answer here is that I want to say I am not entirely sure of all of the AI platforms out there as far as their pricing is concerned. But it is important when you go to look for one that the incremental costs for your use cases should not be significant because your objective is to scale. So you need a scalable pricing dynamic as well to sustain that. And so if you're looking at something that's pricing per model, that's not necessarily going to give you the best ROI for that scale that you might be looking for. Within platform that can produce that scale and it's very low cost per use case, that's what's going to really help you get to that next level.
Yeah. So if you were again, you may or may not be slightly biased, and it's okay to be biased.
Of course.
What would you look for if you were advising folks to go out to look to pick a particular manufacturing platform? So easy to use, I'm assuming, because that allows you the democratization. Pre-built models, should you look at the breadth and depth of those, or just high value models? Like, what are the things that folks should be putting on their wish list?
So if we're thinking back to those like main themes, it's like biggest impact, feasibility, and scale. So how do you do that without a ton of investment costs, right? So I think of it as like two lanes. It's like you're always going to have a need and you should like totally invest on that data scientist route and in-house ML AI solutions. And then you can supplement on those other low-hanging fruit, already thought through, tried and proven applications. So like that application pre-built component of it is really just to enable the speed to implementation and that scale. So, and democratization of it. So that's what's going to allow you to have the most impact the quickest across your organization or across your facility. Those three things, how quickly you can implement it. So making it easy to use and having pre-built applications is going to make it easy to implement. And then is it self-adapting? Can it withstand that data drift, or does it need somebody to monitor it over time?
Yeah, the monitoring bit being the expensive part, that we start to reintroduce humans. How do you find the use cases across a manufacturing facility? Do you come with a broad, well-known set of templates? Or are you using process mining technology? Is it interviews with business leaders? Is it an examination of business strategy? Is it all that, more, different, beyond? What's the usual?
So I guess the first comment I'd like to say is that we are growing, and our vision long-term is meant to be an application library, essentially, where these applications there's very many applications, and they are diverse, and they also are easy to implement and can consume any type of data and give you a result that you are looking for per your business KPIs. That said, it's all stemming from that domain expertise, whether it is internally, we have a lot of experience in manufacturing in our personnel, and also externally. Every time I meet with somebody, my job is to understand their needs. And so if it's not something that we already can help them with, then it's something that we're building out in order then to be able to use, across different industries, as long as they're all in manufacturing use cases, it's something that we can take our domain expertise and our technology abilities, merge with the lessons learned from the work we're doing with the manufacturers we're working with, and create more and more use cases over time. That's just easier for every manufacturer to benefit from.
I suppose that comes with the territory. And the more manufacturers you deal with, the more expertise you have and the more questions you can ask to get there. Have you seen, by the way, it may be slightly different, have you seen process mining used in manufacturers? I've seen it used in a lot of places, by the way, a lot of service orgs. Increasingly, it used to be popular and then it wasn't, process mining. Now it's reinvigorating itself and allowing folks to find out flows where AI can be used. But manufacturing, is it the same?
Yes. Yes. Like,
sure.
very, very much so. Yeah. That's a huge, huge part of it. And I guess maybe this is a bit of a tangent, but kind of related. At least when it comes to like R&D or understanding like your most critical parameters in a process, how to optimize processes, getting a holistic view of your data quickly and understanding where the key points to focus on, that's also going to help drive more effective and productive AI use cases for your own internal team. So you can also bridge those lessons learned in a fast way and in an iterative way with an AutoML platform, and then use that to guide your internal teams as well.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So talk to me just a little bit more detail about some of the best practices, because we've covered quite a few at the moment, Kate, haven't we? Business first or business strategy first, bring in a specialist. What other things should folks be, looking to do or make sure it's in their plan to be successful at AI in manufacturing? Because lots are.
Right. So that pilot purgatory we were talking about, if it takes too long to get out of and you're not scaling, you're not actually getting any value. So that was, I guess, to another point of what is the actual value. So in the example I was using before, for one line, they can get to 8 and then they can scale across different facilities. That all is inclusive of that organization paradigm shift. I'm now on the front line of that task force to help solicit some SMEs across their organization to be champions. We are making our pilot phase location the shining star, our version of the lighthouse, and then we're using that to go build the buy-in. And we're going to go kind of do the same process, though, globally. But the coolest thing is once you do execute this globally, you get a holistic insight of your entire operations. And if you have the right platform, then you have that insight, you have that visibility. You can see, I have, I don't know, when it comes to automotive, if you have paint facilities, let's say, this one example, we started at one facility. Our business goal was to reduce paint defects in order to, save money ultimately. And we could do that, with one facility. We proved it. And then now we're going to be able to go scale that across their other facilities. And then when they get a chance to look at all of them and how they're operating, even, across those facilities, they're going to get even crazier insights that will bring even more value. So that whole scale component is so critical to extract as much value as you possibly can.
Okay, good. Right. Before I'm going to ask you for an example, I'm going to be slightly naughty here and again put you on the spot and say, right, I want to hear a great example of someone who's been successful. I hear the word agile a lot, and it can be used in lots of different ways. But what you're describing there, I'm assuming you can't build a lighthouse example, wait 2 years, roll it out to the next one, wait another 2 years, because by that stage, the organization and the business strategy probably has moved on. Does all this need to be done in an agile fashion? And by my version of agile is, look, you build a minimum viable product, you get it up, you prove it, you then add more components until the value stops appearing, and then move quickly and iteratively onward as quickly as you can.
Yeah, exactly. If that's like the ones that, like, the most successful manufacturers when it comes to changing the paradigm, that's exactly what they're doing. Time kills everything. It kills momentum and there's too much change that can happen. It's best you prove the value, you scale it. It's going to be iterative over time, but you got to keep that momentum going. So the agile work environment, leveraging those different technologies that can help supplement and create that atmosphere is what helps you get out of pilot purgatory.
I love that phrase, pilot purgatory. I'm now going to claim it as my own. Hopefully nobody ever listens to me again has listened to this, so I can sound unique. Now, what I said a moment ago was, give us a real example. Don't give me theory. I like the theory, by the way, but don't just give me that.
Yeah.
Delve in there, find one of the manufacturers you know about, or even better still, you're dealing with, and just paint a really vivid picture of how that has been successful and is continuing to scale to be successful.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess this one, I think I've been mentioning it a few times, but they're also very much committed, that whole mindset shift. We specifically looked at a facility within their global facility operations, and we chose one on purpose based on their leadership being very passionate about AI too, so that whole mindset thing. We started with, where could we improve their operations today? How can they, make their customers happier? How could they, reduce their process times? And how do they? The whole objective on my end was, how do I make sure that everybody involved wants to move forward with Vanti? So time was a huge consideration for that. It's like, hey, Kate, here are our business problems. Here are our KPIs. Can you prove us that, you'll provide value? And can you do that for us? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that in a couple weeks. And they're like, no, that doesn't make sense. It takes us months to build a model. And I'm like, no, I'll show you. I mean, I didn't do it. The platform did it, and my incredible engineers at Vanti did it. But bottom line is, we took their, preconceived ideas of what it takes to create value in this space, and we shifted it. We proved it. So we did that with one line, one use case, just to prove it and demonstrate it. And then now we're scaling, across their lines. We've done more than one use case in that facility. And those are the examples that are going to allow us to continue that momentum. And now that they're on the platform, they have access to many more use cases and can scale beyond those two. But yeah, they're reducing their test time by like 40%. And then we also did another use case, which was defect detection in real time in an assembly process. And that allowed them to identify 20% of their defects, or reduce their defects by 20%, which obviously, holds a lot of weight when it comes to the bottom line. Kieran, you're muted now.
Sorry, I was busy listening, which is really good. I'm so excited there, because see, manufacturers who literally, we're not talking about $100 or $1,000 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking about millions and millions.
We're talking about millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. And what if you went in with we'll save you this, we'll split the revenue model, but maybe not yet. Maybe that's something for the future. But how do you convince people then, Kate, that they haven't got this experience? Go back to what I said earlier on. They don't know what good looks like. You're coming in and you want to take some of their time, and you're saying, look, this is going to take weeks. And by the sounds of things, they were incredulous. I just don't believe you. How were you able to convince them to let you loose on their network to prove that out?
I'm persistent. I'm kind of a pain in the butt sometimes. That's one thing. But it's hard. I'll say that. It is hard. The skepticism that is met from the promises that we might have is very there. It's obvious. But the cool thing is, the more we prove it, the more excited. It's exactly that domino effect that I'm describing, that buy-in. So I'm doing it, externally, and businesses and leaders need to do it internally. So I understand that process well. And it's really nice to learn from their processes, to learn from their experiences. And I love a challenge. I love trying to prove value and ROI. So doing that as a team and being more of like, hey, I'm here to help your business, coming from it with that approach, learning as much as you can about their needs, and making sure that's why that business part is so important. Because if I was not taking into consideration their ROI, then I would never get the next meeting. That's so critical when it comes to getting their buy-in. So as soon as I can bring that ROI in, that's when, it's kind of hard to dismiss the opportunity there.
Do you help them build the ROI business case? Is that a partnership with you and their accountant and their C-suite, or how does that process actually form itself? Or do you just come with numbers?
Well, it kind of depends. I always like to make it custom to them and their use case. I like to make it very specific and accurate. I am an industrial engineer, so I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to those ROI calculations, I guess. So I've had really good relationships with, the people I'm working with, in a sense that they almost help me get to that ROI with them. And we're doing it with the same objective, because the person I'm working with has the same goals. They want to implement AI at scale. They know the value of Vanti. So we're kind of selling it internally together, at least in the the partnership approaches of my job, which I love.
It comes through, and the passion can be a joy. And I suppose that goes back to talking to an expert in the industry, as opposed to sometimes what you get is someone selling something. They don't know it and they say, I'll need to get someone. I'm never comfortable with that. Have you got any broad brush figures that, folks could hang their hat on to say, look, a typical manufacturer could expect by implementing, a manufacturing AI platform to become smart from not smart? It's 50%, 60%, 20 million, 100 million, or are those figures not yet published?
Oh my goodness, Kieran, there are so many cool figures out there. One that I love, this McKinsey study, and I'm going to butcher it. I wish I had it up, but it shows the difference between an early adopter of AI at scale and their potential versus the ones that are kind of late to the game, and then the ones that are very far behind. It's crazy. Over the next 5 to 7 years, the manufacturers that are able to fully implement and then scale their AI will have the craziest competitive advantages when it comes to the value they're extracting. I know that's not an exact dollar amount, so I'll have to have that as a follow-up to this meeting and make a post about it, because it really truly is substantial, and it's not something you want to bat your eyes at. If you can go in and execute now, the time is of the essence, because it's really going to make a difference between business success over the next couple of years.
Do you think it's too late for folks to start? Have they already got so far behind that it's just not worth beginning?
No. I mean, 70% are in the exact same boat. So it's just a matter of figuring it out and going all in. But it is an investment, and that's the other part of it. It's not magic. And so I'm glad people are skeptical about the magic part, because that makes my job harder. It takes work. It takes changing people's minds and creating more cohesive alignment across your organization for something that seems abstract to most people in their roles today.
I suppose if it was easy, everybody would be doing smart manufacturing, and then either you would have then sold everybody everything that you've got, or else there might not be a need for either of us in this particular world. Any last advices, Kate? Because so far today we've talked about, the problems of the whole of the industry, or the promise. We've talked about, some of the solutions that you could come up with. We've talked about everything in between. Is there anything you'd leave folks with who are, in pilot purgatory, haven't started, or else have started but maybe haven't got what they want out of smart manufacturing? Maybe all three.
Yeah, so if you haven't started, that's okay. But know that it takes, some adjustments, that alignment, understanding your strategy, knowing that it should span, to get all the value that you deserve, it should span beyond just a couple use cases. And then going out and executing, creating champions internally across different organizations and groups, and also levels of leadership, and going all in. And then when it comes to the middle cases, you got to prove that value. You got to get some ROI, focus on the business value first, and also that agile work mode, get out of the purgatory and scale. And then the ones that have done it, you're killing it and continue to learn. There's tons of opportunity, even the ones that we say are lighthouses. It's pretty cool, like what they can do at that scale too, and the opportunities that we have yet to be exposed to because we have such few people or manufacturers that are at that level.
That must be kind of exciting, because then you've got, not started and the benefits are just here, have started and the benefits are here, or well down the road and they're still here. That's
Exactly.
kind of cool. I wonder if we as an industry understand all of the potential benefits that can be delivered via AI, because I think we're kind of learning ourselves as well, aren't we? And that's not to diminish any of our skill sets. It's
I
just
can't wait. I'm so excited. It's going to be great. The potential is crazy. Like, we have no idea, but that's why I'm so excited about it. It's going to change everything.
if you had a magic wand, what would the future look like?
Oof. Well, first of all, perfect. Anything that's leaving the manufacturing facility, especially in a dire situation like a pacemaker, there's not going to be a problem with the pacemakers. They're going to be sorted out before they get to the human. So there's also really cool impacts there, and less waste. We don't have to use so much energy. Don't have to. Okay, and the environmental component, it's just going to make us so much better at manufacturing. It's a very, very long-awaited change in this Industry 4.0 transformation is going to bring us to that next stage where the lighthouse will bring us in. We won't be on like the headboard off the Titanic. It'll be like a cruise ship, or maybe we'll be at shore, but we won't be, stuck in the middle of the ocean anymore.
Yeah, you're talking to someone from Northern Ireland that built the ship that then sank. So we have to be careful with that. Maybe if you'd have been around during that time, it might not have sunk. that way you'll have an entire population here who would be absolutely delighted in there as well. That is the interesting bit, isn't it? Because even when we're looking at the moment, the cost of energy, if we can optimize that, shave 20% off, or again, I think as human beings, we need to maybe get better aligned to all the things that we're using or overusing on this planet as well. It could be an interesting chat. Well, look, thank you, by the way, for today. I could have went on for a lot longer, but we're only allowed a certain amount of time here. And if I don't put myself on mute, which I often do, and Emma, who's on the call here, will testify to that. Tom will put me on mute as well. Kate will not be able to speak. But just really, thank you so much. That was an hour's education. I've learned a fantastic amount. At the end of this, folks, everybody who's listening, we put this video back up online so you can listen to parts of it. I'm going to chop bits out. I think those should be republished as well. They'd just be fantastic for folks. There's also a couple of things that I think Vanti are going to give to people as well at the end of this, as well as access to all of the materials. Did I hear there was an ebook that you've got that might help folks understand a little bit more about this space?
Exactly. Yep. We can send that out as well. Anybody, that's interested, always happy to share the ebook or various other materials. And you can also find that at our website at vanti.ai. And you can reach out to me as well at kate@vanti.ai.
And on LinkedIn as well. Tom, who's on the background, has insisted, and I love this, by the way. We've one quick question that we need to get in, and you've 90 seconds or less to answer this. The question is, how do we deal with building up trust in the AI manufacturing market for a better ROI in the long term? So how do we create better trust in AI manufacturing so that more people benefit financially over the long term, or whatever their business ROI is?
Right. So I think setting those expectations early and then creating an atmosphere that enables that. You need to make sure no one thinks it's magic. Have clear that they need to put in the work, and then you need to make sure it produces that outcome. But when you focus on that business value, you'll get there. It's just a matter of process and sticking to it. And when you prove it, everyone's going to benefit. And as soon as you prove it more and more, everyone's going to be bought in.
So there's a lot of hard work. That's not the magic part, but the results sound like the magic part from what we described earlier on, but practical magic, not unrealistic. Well, look, now we truly have squeezed as much value in this call as we possibly can. So look, folks, I recommend do reach out to Kate and do reach out to Vanti. I've had the pleasure to meet the team on a number of occasions. Dig in a little bit if you can, and looking at the model itself builds itself. I watched it in real time do that. I managed a team of data scientists for 11 or 12 years. Trust me, they spent more time actually prepping and preparing data than they did on the innovative stuff some of the time. And to have a solution like this that sits in place, that reheals and refixes itself and allows those individuals to actually exploit more and more business cases, will create more and more lighthouses, more and more successful organizations who become smart AI manufacturers. So I wish everyone a wonderful day. Kate, let me thank you one more time. Let me thank Vanti and the AI Journal as well for running a fantastic webinar. And until we meet next time, thank you so much indeed. And thank you everyone for joining in and asking really fantastic questions as well. Appreciate your time today.
Me too. Take care.